In this video, I want to show you some basic techniques for building a balsa wood bridge. So what are the materials you need for this? Well, you obviously need some balsa wood. Then I also have a ruler. I've got some of these T-pins here. I've got a pencil. I've got a utility knife. I've got a pair of some heavy-duty scissors. I've got my glue. I've got some toothpicks, Q-tips. And then I have my design plan that I'm going to use to glue my bridge down on. And now this is really helpful to have a 1-to-1 scale design plan so that you can make the bridge directly on top of this. But I've taped it to some cardboard because I don't want it to move around on the cardboard. And I also have some parchment paper that I'm going to lay on top of my design plan where you can still see through it, but this will allow me to glue directly on this parchment paper, and it's non-stick, so the glue will not stick to the parchment paper, and I won't be peeling off paper as I take my glued bridge up off of the platform there. So those are the materials I've got here, and I want to show you how I cut the wood first. So I've already cut my wood, but I've got some extra wood here. I'll show you what I did. I was just using scissors for this one because they're very quick, easy to cut. So you just take your heavy-duty scissors here, just cut it to whatever length you need. Now there are times where when you're doing this, if you go slow or if you're cut down here at the end, it might look a little more messy. That was actually a pretty good cut again, but there are times when the scissors they don't give you the cleanest cut. So you can slowly work through wood using a utility knife too. On top of cardboard, you can, kind of saw it a little bit. Even that takes a while and it's not perfect. If you really wanted to get, technical, you would need a blade that's got some little teeth on it. So like this is an example of like a actually wood cutting knife here. And so you kind of just saw it back and forth. And this gives you the cleanest cut, especially when there's lots of little tiny teeth. It's called a fine-toothed blade there. But I cut all of my pieces to length, and let me show you how I did that. I wanted to keep them organized, and so it kind of got moved around a little bit, but they're all in the right places here. So I've got all my pieces here, and you can see they're organized by the length and how many that I needed for each one. It's good to keep them organized because if you didn't have them labeled, then they would already be confused and mixed up. You had to keep measuring them to see which ones they were. So try to keep them organized as you cut them. So I'll set those to the side and I'll set up my parchment paper now. So I'm going to take the pieces that I've cut, and I have my design plan labeled here so I know what I need. So I'm going to take a 250 piece, and then I'm going to take a 111 piece, which is the one I need right here. And I need this to be cut at an angle so that I can get it to lay just right. So this is the angle I want to cut it at. So it's a pretty precise cut there, but I'll do that. All right, so I went ahead and cut 2 pieces at 111 millimeters that I needed here. And I'm going to line them up. But I want to keep this bottom piece in place, so I've started to pin it down. And I found that having just one piece of cardboard wasn't enough to really get the pins to sink down enough and stay in place. So I doubled up my cardboard. Now I've got 2 pieces of cardboard under this, because when you push the pins through, they need to have enough to grab onto, and one piece wasn't enough there. So once I've got my pieces in place, then I can kind of line them up how I want them. And then I'll be ready to glue. So these are ready to go here, but I think before I glue these down, I want to get this piece here as well cut. So this is a 57 piece, which I already have right here, but I might need to trim the edges to make it fit at this angle. It looks pretty good right now, but it looks like it might need to be trimmed by just a little bit. All right, so I've got these lined up just where I want them, and I've cut little angles in here to make it meet at a nice flush junction right there. Now I'm ready to get my glue out and glue the edges. Now this glue, you do not need very much of it, and so you just need to dab it on the ends a little bit, and you might even find that this is too much glue as you try it, like, oh, that came out really fast. That's too much glue right here. So that's why I have my Q-tips. You just need a tiny bit, so I'm going to take most of that off and just kind of paint it on there. Real thin layer of paint there. So once I get my glue on there, tiny little dot of glue, I'm going to place it down right here. Line it up on my design plan where I want it. Okay, I'm going to pinch it down with my fingers real good, and then I'm going to pin this in place so that it doesn't move. Okay, and I might want to pin it at the junction a little bit too. Okay, and then you just let it dry, and it takes 30 to 45 minutes to let it dry. Now, if for some reason you're in a hurry, you might try a hair dryer to get it to speed up a little bit. So let me get this piece over here glued. I'm going to do that for all of these pieces. So again, just the tiniest little bit of glue. It's hard to even tell like how small amount of glue this is. It's very small. It's all is needed here. I'm just going to finish it off, placing this last piece in the right spot and just kind of pinching it in place. And then while you hold it with one hand, with your other hand, you get the pins and you pin it down. Be careful if you're using cardboard to make sure the cardboard is laying flat. You might want to put something heavy on the sides because mine is kind of tilting up a little bit, which will make my bridge like bow in or out. So make sure that it is flat on both sides. But that's the basics method of how you would go about cutting and gluing your bridge, and then it's going to take some time to dry. Once you do one side, you have to repeat it and do it again because your bridge will have two sides, and then you'll connect it using the pieces in your top view of the bridge there. So after putting it all together, this is what my one side looks like. I had to use a lot of pins in some places to really clamp it down. So there was a piece right here that wasn't quite long enough. I wanted to make sure that it was making contact really well. So I would pinch it in and then like use the clamps and really press it in so that it was, really strongly clamped in there. And I did have to make a lot of adjustments to my pieces, just cutting at different angles and trying again. There's a lot of trial and error here. And I want to remind you that nothing is perfect. Even the most skilled person will have little imperfections here and there. This is by no means perfect, but I do want to emphasize that I didn't really use that much glue, and you can't really see a lot of the glue. And if you're seeing a lot of glue on your project, then that probably means you're using too much. And you should really be just dabbing it on there. I had to wipe a lot of excess glue off with my toothpick. I found that was the best way to kind of wipe off the excess. So, all right, that's all I've got for you in this video.